on the verge of some pretty big changes in gaming. At least I think we are. Let's talk about it. What's happening, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're talking about video game prices because it feels like the price of games has been back in the news recently for better and for worse. If you missed it, there's a new console coming out, the Nintendo Switch 2. Pretty big deal, but Mario Kart World is the flagship game that they're going to want you to buy for the new console. And it's going to run you $80 US, $10 more than the typical new release these days. And you've got the same situation for Tears of the Kingdom for Switch 2, which pretty much looks the same as Tears of the Kingdom for Switch 1 and Super Mario Party Jamboree. All three of those are 80 bucks. No matter how you slice it, that is a ton of money, especially for something like a Mario Kart game, even if it is technically an open world Mario Kart game. And listen, I know it's still going to sell millions and millions of copies, and in all likelihood, it's going to be a killer game, but $80? I didn't have Nintendo being the company to bump game prices up on my bingo card for 2025, but anything is possible. Now, Doug Bowser is the head of Nintendo of America and said this is variable pricing at work. They're charging different prices for different games based on what they think they're worth. Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Kart World, and Super Mario Party Jamboree are apparently $80 games. And then you've got Street Fighter 6 for $60 and Bravely Default at $40, which are third-party games, and that changes things, but the prices are still just all over the place. But those high-end prices brought a ton of conversation around how much is too much for a game, and not everybody's on the same page. The games shouldn't have a price increase. When you adjust for inflation, games actually cost significantly less than they did back in the 90s for games that did a whole lot less. But let's be real, no one actually likes the idea of paying more money for games, and thankfully, there are more developers and publishers out there that are actually agreeing, both small and large. As I'm recording this, we're coming off of potentially one of the biggest weeks of the decade for RPG fans. We had the shadow drop of The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered, which is basically so good that it could be considered a remake depending on who you ask. But on top of that, we also had Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the debut game by Sandfall Interactive that landed scores so good it immediately became a top-rated game of the year and is almost absolutely going to be winning a ton of awards at the end of the year. I mean, based on what I'm seeing, a Game of the Year nomination would not shock me for this. But Oblivion and Expedition 33 have more in common than the fact that they're both RPGs. They're also both 50 bucks, which is wild on both counts. Oblivion Remastered reskins the original game in Unreal Engine 5 graphics, brings updated voice lines, modernizes gameplay, adds new items and quest lines in there. By all means, Bethesda or Microsoft could have totally absolutely charged $70 for this and gotten away with it. But instead they launched at 50 bucks, added it to Game Pass, and it became something that was almost at that impulse buy level for a ton of people. Oblivion is back, looks great, and it's only 50 bucks? Sign me up. And if 50 bucks is still too much for Oblivion, you can play it in Game Pass too. Expedition 33 is in a similar kind of camp. It's a turn-based RPG that's getting stellar reviews, looks absolutely gorgeous, and that was made by an indie team of about 30 developers. That kind of build-up makes a game that everybody is at least a little bit interested in checking out, even the non-turn-based people, and it launched at 50 bucks and it's in Game Pass. These games are breaking the mold in two ways. Number one, they're launching at a budget price, and yes, $50 is still a lot of money, but it's significantly less than 70 and way less than 80. And both are performing incredibly well. Oblivion Remastered hit 4 million players in its launch window between Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, including on Game Pass, and on the flip side, Expedition 33 hit 500,000 copies sold in 24 hours. And now I'm editing this video and I want to go pull the screenshot for the 500,000. They've now sold 1 million copies, so it's doing pretty well. To me, it feels like we're hitting an inflection point where big AAA games are costing more money to make than ever. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in some cases, and for the bigger studios, a $70 price tag and microtransactions to boot is basically the only way they can guarantee they're going to recoup some of the money they spent to make the game. And even then, is it actually good? Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, Redfall, Marvel's Avengers, the Callisto Protocol, these are all games that had some good in them, no doubt, but they had absolutely massive budgets and final products that couldn't hit the mark for what players were expecting, and in turn, they didn't bring in the cash. Now, I'm just an armchair expert over here like most of the other people on the internet. By no means do I work in the financial side of any video game development studio, but it stands to reason that setting a lower price for your game could equate to more copies sold because it feels like more of a deal for people. And on the flip side, setting a higher price has the potential to sell less because people would rather wait for a sale or skip the game entirely. I would imagine the question that every studio has to ask is if setting the higher price but selling fewer copies nets out to driving more revenue than setting a lower price and selling more copies. But the biggest pricing question of 2025 so far isn't coming with Mario Kart or Oblivion or Expedition 33, but it's another game altogether, and I'm talking about Marathon, Bungie's live service extraction shooter. It's currently in closed alpha at the time I'm recording this, and Bungie still hasn't shared the official special pricing, only that it would be a premium title, something that people have to pay for, but they said it would not be a full-priced game, which leads a ton of people to assume that Marathon is aiming for that Helldivers, or, I'm gonna say it, Concord price tag of $40. The problem here is that Marathon is a premium game that's trying to make a name for itself in a free-to-play world, and sure, Helldivers 2 was able to pull it off, charging $40 for the base game and then having a Warbond-style battle pass system to keep the money coming in. But Helldivers also is something that felt largely unique compared to anything else that was out there on the market. Marathon seems to be a game that's going after the blend of the Destiny 2 audience, Apex Legends players, maybe some Warzone guys tossed in for good measure, and the difference between Marathon and all of those games, including Bungie's own Destiny 2, is that they're all free. You gotta buy expansions and stuff, but you know what I mean. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the Marathon doesn't deserve $40, but I think it's gonna have a hard time competing with the other free games that are out there. If a group of friends is looking for something new to play, not having any kind of barrier of entry is a big factor in getting them to give it a go. Marathon doesn't have that luxury. And that kind of sets the stage for where we're at right now. Nintendo is charging $80 for Mario Kart, AA developers and even some AAA developers are experimenting with $40 and $50 price tags, all while studios like Bungie are trying to figure out how to even make a budget model work in a free-to-play world. It's a wild time. Now, personally, from a player's perspective, I'm looking for more Expedition 33s, games with tight development teams that take time to deliver something great, but that doesn't overstay its welcome. It's about a 30-hour game, maybe more if you want to see and do everything, but it's not a 150-hour epic that takes hundreds of millions of dollars to make, and it's not an endless live service grindfest. It's a game that knows what it wants to do, does that well, and also feels like a deal with that lower price tag. And if the studio made that work and they're comfortable with where that's at, that's awesome. But I also know the development studios have to make money. People that make games still have bills to pay, and it's up to them to figure out the right mix to make it work for the studio and for the players. And that doesn't always work out. At $40, $70, or potentially even $80. I think it all comes down to what players are willing to pay for each individual experience, so maybe Nintendo's approach of dynamic pricing is the right move after all, but it comes down to the games. Whether it's $40, $70, or $80 or even more, a good game is going to stand above the rest and prove why it deserves your money. Or why it doesn't. But I'd love to hear from you down below. How are you feeling about game prices these days? What do you think about Oblivion and Expedition 33 being $50? How much do you think Marathon is going to be? And when do you usually pick up games? Do you snag them at launch for full price or wait for a sale? And of course, if you're new here, you like what you see and what you hear, hit that subscribe button for videos like this every week and gaming news shorts throughout the week to keep you in the loop. And I'll catch you on the next one.